Okay, so I've erased my lines from my first building. I've also added a second line to make a second building. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler again and I'm going to start the same process over. I'm going to go from the bottom of the vertical line that I drew. Remember, it doesn't matter what order you go to the vanishing point as long as everything goes to the vanishing point. Now I'm going to draw a second line, or actually a first line, excuse me, a first vertical diagonal line. I'm going to draw another one. Okay, so here's something that a lot of you ask me. Well, I can't draw the line through my building. What do I do? If you remember from last year, I told you guys use your buildings that you already have as a stop sign, okay? That doesn't mean you don't have to line it up with the vanishing point. That just means you don't have to draw your line through that building. You can use it as a stop. My line can end here, okay? So I'm going to show you that. So I'm going to go from this top of this line that I just drew, line it up carefully with my vanishing point, and now I'm going to draw from that corner to the next building. Now this building is actually probably going to end up overlapping because of the way I have it set up. So I know that, so I'm already just going to draw into my building a little ways because I know that the way I have this set up is that this building is going to be in front of my first building that I drew. So I'm already just going to add those lines in. This is something that you could go back and make those lines longer if you need to. But if your building is far, far away and it's not going to overlap the building that it's next to, then there's no reason why you should need to draw your line through the building, okay? So now I'm going to start working with my next step. I'm going to make my parallel vertical lines. Again, lining my ruler up with the vertical line, and I'm going to slide it again to whichever side I want to begin with. It doesn't matter. Make my building as wide as I want it, and then draw my line between the two lines that are going to the vanishing point. I'm going to line my ruler back up, and this time I'm going to go the opposite direction towards the opposite vanishing point that I was just working with, and I'm going to decide where my building ends. And I'm going to draw my next vertical line, which is parallel because I lined it up. Okay? Now, I'm going to make the top of my building. Remember, the last two vertical lines that I drew, those are what I'm working with. I need to take them to the opposite sides so they cross. Sometimes your crosses or your X's might be really, really skinny. Other times they might be really, really big and almost square-like, okay? So it's just going to depend on where you put your vanishing points and where you put your buildings. Sometimes you're not even going to see it. Remember, if you're just drawing on top or through your building that you're working on, then you're probably not going to see that line, okay? So if you're drawing right over the top of a line you've already drawn, that's a good indication that you're not going to see the top of that building. Or if you're drawing through the center of the building, you're probably not going to see the top of it because we're not making ice cubes. So again, line it up with the opposite vanishing point. Line it up with the opposite vanishing point. Okay? I didn't draw my lines clear out, but you can still see where those two lines intersect and create an X. Okay? So, again, I would erase my extra lines. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to erase this first part of this first building that I made because this second building is actually in front of that back corner of my building that I just drew. So I'm going to very carefully, I'm going to erase part of that first building that I drew. This is why I tell you, don't worry about doors and windows yet, because you never know how something else that you add to your paper might affect your drawing. And we don't want to have to erase something that we spent a lot of time on. Okay, so now I have two buildings. My second building overlapped my first building by a little bit, and that's okay. I just erased the part that was be behind, so that would have been part of the first building that I drew.